And I've been given like a very hard task, which means to try to make up for some of the time that we waste, and I try my best. The presentation that I'll give you today is on the evolution of psychedelic studies, and I will try to look at the literature on the past 60 years. But what is really interesting is that the concept that we're studying is something that has been studied and used for the past 2,000 years, maybe even more. But the terms, it's very recent, and probably in an alternative world, today we could be at a workshop which name would be the evolution of phenotypic studies, and the conference would be emerging therapy in phenotypic science. Are you familiar with this term? Any of you familiar with this term? Can you raise your hand if you're familiar with this term? Yes, some of you are. Because in reality, someone this morning already mentioned Aldous Huxley, which was one of the first referring to this kind of word in this way, and he wrote in a famous letter, to make this mundane world sublime, take alpha gram of phenanotyme. And phenanotyme from the Greek means manifest the spirit. To this letter there was an answer from Humphrey Osmond, which was actually the one we credited for creating the name, that reply with a very poetic line and say, to fathom hell or soul angelic, just take a pinch of psychedelic. And the transliteration from Greek, which is not really accurate, but let's not go to the detail from the Greek language, stands for psychedelic, which means so mind to manifest, so manifesting the mind. And as I was telling before, as we have already heard since this morning, there is also going on about manifesting something which is already there, which is what the psychedelic experience is about. It's not really creating something new, it's more like putting on the surface something which is already there. And for this reason, especially when we talk about that in the context of therapy or treatment, you really need someone which is expert and can help solving and can help during this process. But what's my approach to study clinical use of psychedelics? Well, we've seen very different people today with very different background, and my background is not in pharmacology and it's not in drug use and abuse, but I like numbers. So what I will try to do in the next very few minutes, no, don't look me with that face. It's I will try to employ and show you the some results of study where we employ quantitative statistical methods to do network analysis and to see how the publication in the field in the past 60 years have clustered together and try to get some information out of this approach. And the first thing that I want to show you is like this map of the frequency of publication since 1964, which is essentially, it's when the first studies on psychedelic, using the term psychedelic, were published. And this map may seem something typical. You have like a lot of concentration in the weird countries for studies. But what is really interesting is that make this map different from many other maps using the same approach on different topics, is that the fact that you have a vast majority of study in United States. Usually you see a lot of the study in the United States and Central Europe, but that's not really the case. That's not the case for study on psychedelic. And this is a first fact that I think we should keep in mind. Then if we look at the most productive countries, and here I need my glasses. Beside that, you will see that there are like two, the histogram and like two columns, and the SCP stands for a single country publication, and the second is like for the yellow part is for multiple country publication. And why I do believe that this is interesting? Because usually when you do something similar in other topic, what you see that usually the yellow part are much larger. Sometimes like 50% of the study are multi-cultural, multi-country studies, which means that there is a lot of collaboration and a lot of study that are done in different parts of the world. But that's totally not the case for psychedelic medicine. well, we can argue that there are different regulations around the world, and that's one of the preventive factors of doing multi-country studies. But that's not the only reason, because it's not the same in other pharmacological approaches, so studies where also you have different regulations around the world. So I think this is very specific for this field, and this the second thing that I think we should keep in mind. Then, if we do a list of the most productive authors, that's the list. Of course, my favorite is the one that gets to the second point, David, which is here with us. And you know, also here you see that the authors come from mostly from North America and UK. And looking at the most relevant sources, this is also another interesting fact. I would expect that the most relevant sources would be like publication on the Journal of Psychedelic Studies. In reality, it's not the most productive journal in the field. But you see that these publications come in different journals, but also in journals that cover different areas. So they are mostly in psychiatry, but also in pharmacology, neuropharmacology, and also more recently there are more papers on more generalistic journals, for example in Scientific Report or Frontiers in Psychology, telling how also the field is slightly shifting over the years. And if we want to kind of study the structure of the knowledge on psychedelics, and we focus on the keywords that we can extract from these articles, we see that we mostly capture two main clusters. And one cluster is related to the study of psilocybin, substance use disorder, depression, and anxiety. And that's important because depression and anxiety go on one cluster, but on the other cluster you have like more study where there is use of MDMA, ketamine, and but more specifically depression, schizophrenia, and PTSD, which makes these two clusters kind of, you know, of course they are close, but they also are independent. And another kind of analysis that we can do, it's a network analysis based on co-citation analysis. So an idea is that if we have like a number of articles, and this number of articles share the same references, somehow they are linked together. And remember, this is a completely sort of unbiased approach because this is data-driven, there are no hypotheses behind. But the idea is that we can use this network analysis to extract thematic clusters and also see how these thematic clusters change over the years. And indeed, if we do like a snapshot of all the study published in the field, we end up with like more than 100,000 references, and they mostly cluster around these 5 main clusters that are about the dosage, the therapeutic mechanism, the mood disorder, the MDA-assisted therapy, and also like a smaller cluster which is in the field of substance use disorder treatment. But probably, if we look at the same cluster over time, we see that there are some shift and some change occur, and probably some of the clusters tend to be more active over the years. For example, the one on therapeutic mechanism, but also some of the clusters were very active in the past, but are not anymore. And chronologically, the main cluster are the one that focused, and its center was around 2011, and the topic was about the substance use disorder treatment. Then, a few years later, a lot of the study were focusing more on mood disorder and treatment of mood disorder. And more recently, the shift was more toward the dosage, focusing more on different levels of dosaging, and also there is a strong part of the cluster on low dosage and micro dosage. And then the most studied cluster, which is also the biggest, is one focusing on therapeutic mechanism. And more recently, the studies were focusing a lot on MDMA-assisted therapy. And if you look at this cluster, and I try to plot like today's session, and you will see that probably the three speakers that presented before me, they totally fall within these three clusters, but probably, I mean, with more space, I could have put like everyone that was talking today, and they will fall within this, this cluster. And was I on time? Yes, with this I want to end my presentation, and thank you all for your time and all the sponsors that made this day. Perfect.